Hello. We were talking about GDP in our last class, and I told you that GDP is basically we are trying to find out how much is the total income that has been earned by the people of that nation for that particular financial year. That is GDP. Now, that national income can be calculated in different ways. So I told you that there are three approaches to calculating GDP or calculating the national income, not GDP, calculating the national income, and one of them is GDP. So let me just show you, wait a minute. Uh, so, uh, yeah. So we talked about no, it hasn't come. Yes. Okay. So we talked about these three approaches for calculating the national income. The one is called the production approach, where we talked about this, that the value of total production of final goods and services within the boundary of the country in a financial year is calculated, and that is your GDP. Then we talked about the income approach also in the last lecture. There we said that the total income earned by the individuals, families, or corporate entities. So that means that the profits made by the companies and the profits made by individuals like say lawyers or like say the hair cutting salon people or the salaried people who are working in some place. All of these things are added together, and that is something which can be the national income, which is the sum total of wages, profits, rents, and interest. And I was telling you that whichever income you would think of, it would fall in one of these four headings. Then the last one that we are going to be talking about today is the concept of the expenditure approach. Now, know one thing, although there are three approaches to calculate GDP for a nation, when it comes to actually calculating it, all the nations, I don't think there is any exception at all the nations use the concept of the production approach, all of them. But at the same time, it is necessary to know these other things. Nobody uses the income approach at all, because as I was telling you, it's very difficult to know the incomes of different people because nobody tells you the exact incomes. So it's very difficult to find out these wages and profits and things like that. And the records also will have to be far, far more many. So that is the reason why most of the times you do not have the income approach being used. So that leaves us with either the production approach or expenditure approach. So let us talk about the expenditure approach today. Expenditure approach comes from this philosophy that one person's income is another person's expenditure. How? So, say for example, I am actually uh, employed by a university or an institute, and when I'm employed by that particular entity, they spend on my salary. So what that means is that their expenditure is my income. Okay. Now I take that income and I go and buy whatever, some food stuff. So now my expenditure becomes the income for that grocery shop person and for the people who have produced the items that I bought from the grocery shop, because the final income is going to go to them also. So my expenditure becomes their income. Now, when the grocery shop wala gets his income, he also would be spending it on certain things. So then his expenditure would become income for somebody else. So with that income, maybe that person decided to put some furniture in the shop. So then his expenditure on furniture becomes the income for the person who makes furniture, right? So everything that you would think about, you would realize that one person's expenditure becomes income for another person, simply because whenever you are spending, you are the buyer. There has to be somebody who is selling, no? Otherwise, there is no transaction. And if there is no transaction, we have said this before, there is no economics. So economics comes into picture if and only if there is a buyer and there is a seller. So when there is a buyer and there is a seller, it is very obvious that one person's income is another person's expenditure. So either we can look at calculating national income as something which is the sum total of wages and interest and profits and uh, rent. Yeah. So or any of these, or it can be the total expenditure that you make. Very simple. But the reason why this is not actually being used much is because what we find is that more often than not, most of us do not know how we can uh, how we can calculate the expenditure. I mean, you ask me that you earn so much, and so as far as last 15 days are concerned, where all did you say spend how much? I would not know because I don't make those kind of accounts, you know. So more often than not, people do not know what they have spent their money on. The need arises, they have the money in their pocket, they spend it, and that's that. You would not remember. And even if they try to remember or write down, they would remember hardly 50% of what had happened. Most of the times, we do not remember. So that is the reason why expenditure approach is not used. But theoretically speaking, expenditure approach is useful to know about because economics is going to be making use of it. And I am going to be telling you about how it is being used in economic theory later. And that is the reason why today you just have to understand that national income can also be calculated as expenditure. So now let's go back to what slide I was trying to show you. Okay, so if you look at this, the expenditure is put in, the national income is put in as C plus I plus G. So national income is equal to C plus I plus G. Consumption expenditure plus investment expenditure plus government expenditure. C plus I plus G. And what do these things mean? The expenditures in the economy are made by three entities. The consumers, as I told you, the consumers go and buy furniture, they go and buy shares, they go and buy food stuff, they go and buy the restaurant food, whatever. So one is the consumption expenditure, the money that you spend on your own consumption. Okay, now either you spend it on your own consumption and you get satisfaction or happiness out of it, or you take that money and you invest it into bank account, you invest it into share market, you invest it into land, you invest it into gold, whatever, but you are investing. Now when you are investing into say a share market, or when you are investing it into the bank, that money is not stagnant now. It has gone into another hand and now it is going to be used for investment by those people. ठीक है? So investment in land, investment in uh, not so much land, investment in mainly the yes, investment in land, investment in machinery, all these things are the things which are going to give us further income. So that is called investment. And so you have either the consumption expenditure or you have the investment expenditure. So you have the things which you would buy for getting pleasure later, but even when that money is given out to somebody else, it is a huge amount of money, and that person also will be able to invest that money into something else. And all these investments are going to earn you money and are going to earn money for somebody else also who would be investing it. So consumption expenditure, investment expenditure, and then there is this third entity, which is government. So government does not spend money for consumption. If it does welfare expenditure, it is not doing it for consumption. When government is trying to be running the courts and things like that, it is not for its own purpose either. So it's welfare expenditure, it's even running its own machinery of say law, of say police, of say providing electricity or whatever. All of these things are the things where the government is spending money, and so the government becomes the third entity. So you have corporate sector, you have individuals and families, and you have government, and all of these people together either consume or they invest or there is government expenditure. So for private individuals and companies, it is consumption and expenditure. For government, it is government expenditure and government income. Okay, so C plus I plus G, and it's a closed. What do we mean by a closed economy? An economy which refuses to talk to anybody. So it has built these walls around itself and it does not talk to anybody at all. It does not have anything to do with the world. It is just consuming what it is producing. So say some island in Pacific where they don't even know how to build a ship. They have never seen any other ship and nobody else has seen them because there's this tiny little thing in this huge ocean and nobody knows where they are and who they are. So theirs would be a closed economy where they have nothing to do with the outside world. Most of the economies are not closed economies. So when we are importing things and exporting things also, in addition to the production inside the country, the total balance that we get out of it, which is exports minus imports. So that is something which we have produced, but we sold to somebody else, but it became our income. So I am exporting something and I am, say I am a Oman, in which case I am exporting petroleum and I am earning a lot of money out of it. What I'm importing from others is not as expensive. So finally, X minus M is going to be positive for me. And that is going to add into my national income because of course that money goes to either the government or the corporate sector and through them to individuals also. So X minus M is going to increase my national income. If X minus M was negative like it is for India, uh, then some of my national income is actually flowing out somewhere else, decreasing the national income or the money that is available for us, for our own consumption, for our own pleasure. It is going out because we are not able to keep all our income within ourselves. We have to spend it outside so that we can get something like say petroleum or something like say uranium and things like that. That further increases the uh, happiness and everything. But as far as the national income is concerned, the total income kind of flows out. So that is what we mean by expenditure approach. So this is as far as the three approaches of GDP are concerned. And now I'm going to tell you one more thing which you must know about when you do the production approach ka calculation for GDP, because as I told you, that is the approach which is used the most when it comes to calculating GDP. But there is a particular concept that you have to understand while you are calculating the GDP through the production approach. Say, for example, there is a braid factory which is making braids. So this person who is making braid has to report to the government that this was the total production that I got and this was the value of the production. Value of the production is the uh, price of one loaf of bread multiplied by the number of loaves of bread that that bread factory makes every day. Okay, so that is the value of production per day. So this factory goes and reports to the government saying that I have produced, say, something worth 75 lakhs a day. It's a huge factory. So per day, I am producing breads worth 75 lakhs. Now, the government says that, okay, fine. So we are adding 75 lakhs to our GDP because that is what has been actually made in our country and ready to sell. This is final product. The breads are already made. But we forget that the person has bought wheat and oil and yeast and other things from outside, and only after that the bread was made. And when he bought wheat from the farmer has already told the government that this is what I have actually produced, and the government has written it down that wheat production this much added to GDP, oil production this much added to GDP, yeast production this much added to GDP. And now once again, all of those things are counted again in the total value of bread, because bread is going to include the cost of all of these things. So that means that you're double counting lots of things and your GDP looks artificially far higher than what it actually is. Now what do we do? So there is a concept called value added approach. What do you do in value added approach? What you do in value added approach is you say that, okay, I have made a bread, but out of this, what are the items that are there which are already calculated in the GDP? All the raw materials? Yes. Then even transportation company, which takes my bread from factory to different people, the transportation company has already reported that this is what is my production of the transportation services. So I can't count that also. Electricity, I'm counting electricity, but electricity company also has said that this is the electricity that I have produced in the year or in the day or in the month. So that is also counted. So basically, when you are looking at production of anything, you take the value of production of that item and you deduct the raw materials and the services of those people who have already said that this is my output. You do not include those. So what is it that I include finally? What I include is the people who have been employed just by me. That is my contribution to the economy. See, this is not income approach. Don't mix up the two. I'm talking about just production. Okay. So under the production approach, salaries are not counted because salaries have gone into producing something. Salaries are not counted. Salaries are counted in income approach, not in production approach. So in production approach, I take the total value. From that, I deduct the wages that I have paid to my factory workers and to my sales team, to my administrative team. Okay, I add all of those and then I, or rather, I do not deduct those. So from my value, from my production, I am deducting the money paid for raw materials and the money paid for the services which I have bought from others who are not my company people. Okay, so these two things I'm going to deduct. What I'm going to keep in that figure and not deduct is the people whom I have employed, is the services that I have generated for myself. So for example, if the transportation is something which I have provided for myself, I'm not going to be deducting that from my the production. The only things that I will deduct are the things which are already registered by other people as their production with the government. Okay, so basically, value added approaches, value added is equal to value of my production minus raw materials minus services bought from other agencies. Okay, and what it will include, as I told you, is salaries of my people and the services that my people have given to basically produce bread from these raw materials. Those are the things which is the value added by me to wheat, to oil. There was by wheat, there was oil. I added value to it and transferred it into bread. So my contribution to the national economy is value of my production minus raw materials minus services bought from other people. This is what is the value added approach, and this ensures 100% that the same things are not counted twice. Things are counted only once and you get realistic and total estimate of the GDP. I hope you have understood this. In case you have not understood it, write a mail to me at alka, A-L-K-A, dot P-A-R-I-K-H, Parik, at yahoo.in, and I will answer your questions. Okay, fine. And remember, these are the things which people like to ask a lot in the exams. So that's why be very careful that you have understood this concept. Okay, so that's all for today, and I'll see you later. Bye. Have a nice day.